Well, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey here on the Daybreak Show, and I'm happy to have in studio Fred Holmes from Fred Holmes Tree Service at fredholmestreeservice.com, 427-4489. And first things first, Fred, thanks for coming on, and we really appreciate your being part of the radio station for so many years with advertising on the radio station. And so first things first, I'm glad to have you in. We've been trying to get you for a while. You're a busy man.
Yeah, it just seems to be all the time.
Yeah, for sure. So today, one of the things that we hear about with you and work that you do is hazardous trees. And one of the things is hazardous tree removals. Now, we were just talking before we got started, and it wasn't but maybe a month or 2 months ago, we saw some massive lightning strikes around our area, which is something that for a while seems pretty foreign to us. We don't necessarily get a lot of lightning strikes, but when they happen and they impact trees, that's a big deal. And you're saying we should definitely look at these. What are some telltale signs? One, that maybe your tree has been hit by lightning, and where we go from there.
Well, a lot of them will have streaks down the side. We had 3 different jobs that really heavily damaged the trees. One was cracked and just hanging up there.
Ugh.
And so you have, anytime a catastrophe like that hits, you should check your trees. In fact, we just had a tornado out between Harstein and Strong Road out there, and that ripped out a whole bunch of trees.
So when those types of events happen, after everything's all said and done and it seems to be all cleared off and safe to enter in, and somebody calls you up and they says, can you come and take a look at the aftermath of this? What are some of the things that you initially key in on? Is right when you said the streaks that come on down, and is that usually with a lightning strike at least happen at the top of the tree and moves it all the way down, or can it strike in the middle? Or
yeah, there's no set place where it has to hit. It can hit on that. It can jump from tree to tree, or it can go right into the ground and get into people's septic system or wiring and burn it right out.
Wow.
You know, all sorts of things. Electricity is really something. First thing you should look for is obviously limbs hanging up there that are going to fall out and mash you. You know, and some of them, you know, you don't really think about it, but if they come out just right, they come like an arrow, and they're capable of sticking right through a roof.
Sure.
So they could sure pin somebody to the ground.
So are there cases too where you'll see a tree and the tree limbs and the branches and they're kind of all stacked on top of each other, where some have fallen off the tree but are still laying on the level below it, if you will, and then the winds come up and that could be like what you're just talking about?
Oh yeah, those are called widowmakers. Anything that'll come out of it, it'll kill you.
Oof.
You know, and other things that you look for in your trees, even without a storm, you know, is if your tree's starting to get real thin. And we have, like in this area, laminated root rot, or the common name is poree, in the Doug firs. And what happens is the outside feeder roots rot off, and then it can't get nutrients up, so then it starts dying from the top down. But unfortunately, the feeder roots and all that root system is what holds it in the ground, too. So you get a storm and it blows it over.
So does it thin? Is that what you were saying? It thins out, or is that
It'll start dropping needles.
Okay.
It gets real thin looking. In fact, if the sunlight's on it, it kind of has a brown tint to it. And you can look at various trees and compare them. You know, same type tree. One will be healthy, and one you can see it getting sick.
And that starts at the top and then moves its way down?
Usually.
Okay.
Yep.
If you don't have, like, you've got all the equipment and gear to shimmy up these trees, of just regular land lovers, if you will, folks on the ground, if they're looking at the trees from the base of the tree up 6, 7, 8 feet or so, just kind of in their sight line, are there some other things that are telltale signs that we need to call you and start looking at these?
Yep. Well, first off, stand back a little further from the tree so you can see all the way to the top. You know, look for any danger like that. Other things to look for in this area, we'll get like little conchs on some trees, and they can be all green and still have conchs on them. Those little fungus deals that grow on the side of the tree.
Okay.
Well, they only grow on rotten wood. So if they're growing out the side of the tree, it tells you that that tree is rotten.
So it kind of looks like half of a mushroom cap. Is that what those are?
Yep.
Oh,
and
interesting.
they're usually black or dark color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other things, to look for are woodpecker holes. They're there because there's bugs in it, so it's rotten or has a
Okay.
defect in it.
Are there a lot of
Things like
woodpeckers
that.
around our parts?
Lots of woodpeckers. Yep.
And so is that just the northwest, or is that a sign that we have more rotten trees than we think we do?
Well, we have more trees, period, than everywhere else, but we have lots of woodpeckers that's their job is to go get bugs. And then we have the little ones that are like sapsuckers that look like a miniature woodpecker.
Uh-huh.
And they're the ones that just put those little drill holes in, like in a line around the trees, stuff. And then they come back and they check for bugs stuck in the sap, or they eat the sap, things like that.
Interesting. Huh, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
And that isn't necessarily bad, but when you see a bigger hole in it, that's the woodpecker going inside or go digging in to get the bugs.
What about just the different types of trees that we have in the area, and how you can tell kind of the health? As you were mentioning, some of the tops of the trees turn brown, but is that a telltale across the board, or do different trees that folks have, maybe even their yards, or if they've got an extended lot with a lot of forest area in between those different types of trees, are there some
Yeah.
different ones?
Well, obviously, any tree, if it starts to turn brown and get real thin and everything, it's distressed,
Uh-huh.
sick. You want to look around the bottom to see any obvious signs of defect, cavities, cracks, anything like that. Or especially after storms, once you've looked up there and seen there's no limbs that are going to fall out and hit you, look around the root systems and see if there's any cracks. Because a lot of times these big windstorms, they won't completely push the tree over, but it really weakens it, and it'll have those big cracks, and at least you have time to do something with it.
So then, too, when we get these heavy rain events and it kind of saturates the water, saturates the ground, I guess, and then the winds come up again, too, that's no good if the root system is
Right,
dying.
it softens the ground. And different types of trees have better root systems than others. For instance, a cedar is wide and shallow, you know, and a Doug fir digs down deeper, has a better root system. Hemlocks in this area, when they get any size to them, they're almost always they get rotten in the butt.
So when it comes to, I guess, tree root transference, can something that diseases one tree spread underground to other trees as well?
Well, like we talked about that pori or laminated root rot,
Yeah.
that is a communicable disease in the Doug firs. So once the feeder roots touch, then it can jump to the next tree.
Ah,
That's why your timber companies, if they have a patch of pori or root rot, they will take a bigger circle out, and then they plant a different type of tree in there that's not susceptible to laminated root rot.
interesting. Huh.
So,
Back to the wind as we're moving through the fall. We've had some pretty windy conditions here. How much, when you're looking at a tree, let's say you're out on a nice day like this, and you're looking at your trees and they look real nice, and you notice the wind and they're moving at a fair clip back and forth. Is there a certain threshold that you should be concerned about, that they're moving too much?
that's really hard to say, but if they're not swaying, then they're not healthy and they're not pliable. If they're not moving at all, it'd be more like a snag, and it's just standing there waiting until it doesn't even have to have the wind to fall. It
Really?
can go anytime it wants. And one thing to think about is we have predominant winds in this area that blow from wherever you're living. The heaviest winds come from one direction. Well, that's especially, you want to look at that side of the property to see what tree could do the most damage. Tree is only worth what it's going to smash. So if it's capable of taking your kitchen off, that's not a good one. I had a guy one time, he says, well, that's nothing that $10,000 wouldn't fix. I said, well, I have a difference of opinion. If you're sitting at the coffee table having a cup of coffee, when it takes the kitchen off, it's considerably more than $10,000.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this?
Just over 40 years.
So when you are at the coffee shop and you hear people talking down the way about taking their own trees down or falling their own trees, what would you say as the reason why they need to contact you as a professional.
Just like there's an old saying, always practice away from the houses.
Yeah.
Because what is that old commercial we used to have, Excedrin headache number 695 is when the tree fell the wrong way.
Yeah.
It happens.
People are just maybe not unfamiliar, or they've done a couple tiny trees back years ago and they think they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But you can see when you come on the site, you can kind of get a lay of the land because you've been doing it for so long, where the cut needs to go to avoid this and
Sure.
things like that.
There's a lot to that. And a tree will always lean at least two ways. It'll lean out and then to one side or the other. So you have a variety of places that you could go with it. And besides being crooked or heavy limbs on one side, you just got to judge all those things.
There are a lot of old trees around, and are there anything when it comes to an age or a perceived age for the healthiness of a tree?
No.
It's just...
Well, I mean, obviously, if you had really big wood and it's past its prime, it's just getting old.
Okay.
It gets more defect. But around this country here, all of it's been logged. It's all second growth. Even places where you have 4-foot dug fir, it's probably second growth. Just grew real fast.
So you just need to look for those signs, the kind of the browns at the top, some needles on the ground in those cases. What was it again, where it looked kind of like the mushroom on the side of? Because I see that all the time. Conchs. That's a new word for me today. Mm-hmm. So that's good to know. I'm gonna spot those out now. I'm sure everywhere I go.
Yep.
I'll say, oh, that's not a good sign. They need to call Fred.
Yep.
And speaking of that, Fred's phone number is 360-427-4489. We're going to have Fred in more and more often to talk a little bit about other things that he specializes in, but hazard tree removal is one of those. You can also find him online at fredholmestreeservice.com. And thanks for coming in and talking with me.
Well, thank you for having us.